Okay, well, hello, welcome to Seat Designers episode, God, we're up to 8, aren't we? Yeah, it's 8 now, right? Yeah, season 4, yep. Episode 8. Yes, and I am joined, as always, by my two lovely co-hosts, Mr. Frederick Olsen.
Hello.
Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, Barry fucking Manilow up in this. Mate. Yeah, that is. And, of course, the venerable Dr. Gareth Millwood.
Hello.
See, that guy's consistent.
I mean, I'm Barry Manilow during the show, and Gareth is Barry Manilow after the show.
Barry Manilow in the pub having a cold one. Anyway, we are also joined today by a very special guest, a man that we met at Adventure X, and that I have had the incredible pleasure of interviewing before in another part of my career. He is a incredibly well-dressed man and a delightful gentleman, and the creator of Dropsy the Clown, an adventure game about loving people. Not in that way, you filthy bastards. In real, like, human love.
No vinyl.
No vinyl. It is my esteemed pleasure to welcome Mr. Jay Tholen to the podcast. How you doing, sir?
Doing well.
Hello there.
It was a good effort. I'm going to give A marks for effort on that one.
Thanks. I have to really try to get a deep tone going.
Oh yeah,
you and me both. My voice never dropped. It seems.
So that's the cue for this show, right? Deep voices all around.
Stop leaning into the mic. No, if I try to do a deep voice, I end up sounding like Tex Murphy, which is cool in a way, but not really what I was going for. And I was about to launch into the entire opening spiel of Under a Killing Moon. I'm not going to do that. I am instead going to address the topic of today. That's not the word I was looking for. Not address. Well, I'm going to reveal. Yes, pull the curtains back and stuff. We are, in fact, going to carry on.
You're getting done with your inner monologue there, Hamlet.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know. Anyone want to take over? No. Good. We are going to keep ignoring our better intentions or things and talk about controversial subjects. We already talked about political narratives in games, so we are now going to address religious themes in games. So we have invited Jay, whose dirty, filthy secret is that he is Christian.
Wow.
So for the three heathens in the show here, maybe he can educate us. Yeah, exactly. Maybe you can educate us on some things. Now, I just want to make, all facetiousness aside, I just want to make it clear that we are not here to, be miserable and antagonistic and all that. We are not asking this man to defend his faith, nor are we here to defend our lack thereof. We are simply here to learn and be civil and courteous to each other. Isn't that right, gentlemen?
Correctamundo.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow. We just spilled the beans out there. So
we're going to try to be remarkably nice.
E3. So I guess the initial question that just come right out of the gate, Mr. Tholen, does your spiritual convictions show in your games, in your art, consciously?
Yeah.
I was kind of holding my breath because that's the whole pitch of this episode. If he'd said no, then we'd be fucked.
And then we could just
I really make an effort to not put that in there. So, all right,
cool.
Good show.
Well, episode over. See you guys next week.
No more for today.
No, yeah, like especially with I guess my music is pretty. A lot of that is pretty blatantly. Religious or spiritual or whatever, but with the games, but that's not really for an audience other than me and like whoever digs up my music online. The game thing I think is more broad, and the medium doesn't normally have many spiritual themes outside of like, coloring or like some kind of setting thing or something. So Not from the real world anyway. So I think I have to approach it a little bit differently when it comes to this medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what did when you did Dropsy? I mean, I'm thinking back to Adventure X where you were part of a panel and you did a speech on Dropsy as well. And at least during the panel, which I attended, you mentioned that Dropsy is kind of a Christ-like figure, and it got a big laugh out of the audience. But then I went home after the event and I played it because I was intrigued by it, and I went, well, holy shit, he's right, because this guy is pretty much a manifestation of selflessness, which is very, lot of stuff has been made of the teachings of Christ in modern day society, but when you get down to the core of it, it's about loving your neighbor and it's about being selfless, and Dropsy embodies those characteristics, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think what I wanted to do was show like maybe what an ideal Christian, in my opinion, who is actually attempting to exemplify what Christ taught, what that might look like in a person, and because it's not a one-to-one allegory. Like Dropsy's not, he's fallible and all this stuff. But it's it was definitely, there was intent. There was intention there. So yeah.
Is there? I don't mean this in a weird way, but Dropsy is kind of a naive character as well, in that he will, he's shocked and surprised when people look at him and see this horrible clown, and he doesn't understand the world around him. Does that also tie into this? Let's call it a metaphor.
Yeah, I think so, because there's some verses that say things. Well, Jesus said, unless you become like one of these children, you won't see the kingdom of God. And there were a few other scriptures where he basically told these people, in one instance it was the religious people, the Pharisees, of the day, to basically stop
being jerks.
Acting like they know everything and become like a kid, because kids are just inherently very trusting, and they usually, unless they had a harrowing childhood or something, usually they assume the best.
Right, there's an innocence
about
there.
People. Yeah, and there's a lot of wonder, I think, in kids, and so. Yeah, I think I tried to make Dropsy. So I don't know. Dropsy started back before I maybe took my convictions very seriously, and he was really kind of just a very simple stereotype of maybe a scary-looking clown who's maybe a little slow, who people don't want to be hugged by him, because he started on something awful in a little forum game.
Yeah.
Where, I posted a panel, and then, people say go left or look in the dumpster or pee on the bush or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I post another panel, and I don't know, that was in 2008, I think. And so as I changed as a person, I still wanted to make a game out of Dropsy, like a legitimate game. But I realized, okay, well, I really can't make this game if it's going to be ableist and all these other pretty bad leftover things from being a person who signed up on something awful when they were like 15 years old. So
yes. And I recall as well that in an early incarnation of an entirely different game, actually, Dropsy was a boss in a sort of platformer game where he was the evil clown that you had to stomp his ass.
Yeah, so that was back in I never put him in the game yet, but because I ran into a bug. But that was when I was I think 16 or 17, and that was in I don't know, 2003 or 2004.
It's
something
really,
like
really interesting. It sounds to me like, I don't know, that's kind of deviating from the subject, but I'll let trolls rein me back if you think so. But it sounds like well, you said that you didn't take your convictions seriously, and I'm assuming that you mean that you didn't really approach your Christian faith in a serious way prior to changing Dropsy around. So it's interesting to me that this character of yours that you made actually kind of follows your own personal journey, sort of.
Yeah, it does, cause yeah, I mean, just I when you change as a person, I don't know, I couldn't see myself making the thing I made in 2008 and selling it to people because it said a lot of not that great things. But yeah, when I say I didn't really take my faith seriously, like I was always, like a lot of people, I was always by name, or by my tribe was Christianity,
yeah, right. And that's the situation here by far as well. I mean, I can say this, right, trolls? You got married in a church. Edit this out.
Sorry, I have some keywords loaded up here. Sorry.
You just slipped and fell, didn't you?
That's how it sounded. But I mean, you can be a cultural Christian here, and most will be so unless you're a heathen like me who decide you want nothing to do with it, and you basically rid yourself of the whole thing.
I almost mean this in like an inverse way, like more of an American. Like a lot of people are very proud of being Christian, and like, and they'll argue about God's existence and everything, but the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control that Jesus taught doesn't really show up, or it's not implemented, and but exactly they'll be like, God does exist. What are you talking about? You suck,
Yeah, it's
and
all,
like that.
It's all Book of Leviathan.
Yeah, Book of Leviathan, my favorite book.
Do you mean Leviticus, Frederick?
Yeah, sorry. Oops.
Oh man, I wish it was Leviathan.
I mean, in my defense, I'm not. In my defense, I kind of decided I was not gonna read any scripture. So
I think French's atheism clearly showed through on that one.
I think it does.
The worst part. And I was just sitting there nodding, going, "Yeah, Leviathan sounds good."
It's a cool name. I mean, Leviticus is also a cool name.
Yeah.
My favorite one is Book of Job.
Book of what?
That is a cool story.
Book of Job. Yeah, Book of Job is my favorite. Well, it's the one that everyone, most secular people are familiar with the Book of Job.
That's
and it's sort of
book of one guy just being fucked over continuously.
Yes. Exactly. It's very that's the one I think transcends just the standard Christian teachings and just has for my atheist money real world applications, because life will inevitably fuck people over regardless of your faith and convictions.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting talk, because what I really like about you as a Christian, Jay, is that you want to live by these positive values. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, even though I consider myself I am an atheist, those values are still, in my view, good values to live by. And hell, I mean, we all live by them. I try to treat people nicely. Unless you're an asshole to me, then I'll be an asshole to you. But I mean, the loyalty and the kindness is definitely originally a Christian concept. I won't turn the other cheek. I'll punch you in the face, but
I won't. I'll run away.
I'd be the runaway type. Though I'd like to think I would turn the other cheek.
I just want to get this thing.
I'll turn the butt cheek.
Turn the other butt cheek. Like I said at the
Sorry.
Jeez. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good song. I just want to get, like I said at the start of the episode, we are not here to defend our atheism. Jay is not here to defend his faith. I do think that the point Jay is making.
Actually, it's all about ethics and games atheism.
Wow, it's been a long time since you've made that joke.
What, the last episode or something?
Air quote joke.
Okay.
Now, the point being that most Christians, at least the loudmouth ones, fail to live up to the teachings of Christ, and most atheists fail to live up to what they talk about, which is that you can be perfectly happy without any religious convictions. Most atheists I know are miserable, god-awful people.
Yeah, most atheists are assholes.
They're really assholes, and it's such a, I used to be the asshole.
If you know that they're an atheist and you associate that label with them, then that means they're probably very they want to make sure you know or something.
Yeah, and I mean the problem to me is the organization of the whole thing. I don't want to be part of a group or a tribe based on what I may or may not believe, which is innately personal. So it's kind of ironic to me when someone decides to unsubscribe from the church that they just head on straight over into another church, I don't want to do that. Yeah,
it's like a different tribe.
I want to be me. I don't want to be part of your shitty tribe. I want to be happy being me.
Yeah.
That's Satanism. I'm just kidding.
I love that we were when we wanted to do this episode, we were afraid to do it and kind of tiptoeing around it because we were, well, what if we insult Jay? What if we insult Christians? We're insulting atheists now.
I'm not very easily insulted. Don't try me though, but I'm not.
No. We wouldn't. See, that
wasn't
would
a challenge.
Okay,
Don't
you're
try
on.
me, bro.
Someone said challenge. You're on.
No. But I was a little concerned when you told me the topic a few weeks ago because I was thinking I can't think of anything other than really bad games that try to do something.
Well, that's an interesting part of the topic. So why don't you name some and name why they fail so miserably at conveying this belief?
Have you played any?
Yes, it was actually one of the questions I had on my little bullet point list. Was why do Christians games suck so much? Not Christians. I accidentally added an S there. I mean, I'm sure Christian is a fine joke.
Why does Christians games suck so
Christian.
much?
Yeah. There's some guy named Christian running around making these terrible...
A tear is rolling down his cheek. My game sucks.
Why do you hate my game?
I played a first-person shooter called Catechumen, which was apparently the highest budgeted Christian game. Yeah, and the laugh of derision is wholly warranted because, my God, what a terrible game, no pun intended. And the other one is Super Noah's Ark, which I think most Super Nintendo aficionados are aware of. The one that, it's basically Wolfenstein
Super Noah's Ark. What is that?
It's
Jay, explain, please. It's wonderful.
Okay, it's by that Wisdom Tree company, right?
Yep.
They made a lot of NES games too that were Christian, but it's basically I think they licensed the Wolfenstein I guess Wolfenstein.
It was Wolfenstein, yeah.
And you have to throw fruit at animals in Noah's Ark.
Yeah, right? Basically, it was an unlicensed SNES. It was an unlicensed Super Nintendo cartridge. You're playing as Noah, and you're running around the Ark trying to subdue goats and shit by tossing fruit at them. And the story goes that id Software were kind of perturbed by the fact that they were going to release Wolfenstein 3D for the Super Nintendo, and they ran into all sorts of censorship bullshit with Nintendo and such. So the legend goes that as an act of fuck you Nintendo, they licensed their engine to this company Wisdom Tree, who were already known for making horrible shitty Christian games for the Nintendo. And so Super Noah's Ark actually came out first before
I have a friend who is also a Christian. I think he just converted to Catholicism, whatever, but that doesn't matter. But he is a weird fan of a few of their games, and he will defend them, not because of their religious integrity, but he thinks they're legitimately good, like buried Nintendo treasures. And I don't remember what they are. Maybe you can add it to the notes or something. But I was watching a Let's Play of one of them, and I'm like, that is pretty good. But there's, not really any Bible in it. It's just a Zelda thing. And then the theming is some Bible thing. But other than that, you wouldn't know. So maybe they had, a designer there who was, really a pretty good designer or something, but no one will ever know because it was wrapped up in like a Bible quiz to progress or whatever.
Exactly. So I guess the question is, we're trying to get to the core of why do Christian games, like overtly Christian games,
Yeah, sorry,
suck?
Christian, it's nothing to do with your game. I'm
Nothing
sure
to
your
you,
game is
Christian.
great.
You're a pretty great guy, and I think it has to do with the preachiness of some of it, because people who are not Christian, or at least kind of on the undecided fence, don't like to be preached to. That's why I really like the idea of Dropsy being a sort of Christ-like figure without it being shoved down your throat, because you can play it without even realizing this, metaphor or whatever. Or you can look at it from a Christian viewpoint and get a whole different dimension of enjoyment out of it, and it's never shoved down your throat. Kind of like
Right.
RoboCop.
Or, Toy Story 3, it does this too.
Oh, yeah.
One of the writers of the Toy Story movies is a Christian, and he imbues them with some metaphorical stuff. Like, there's a point at which Woody, like, they're arguing over whether they should stay with their owner or go to this daycare or something because they think the owner is abandoning them. And Woody, like, lifts up his shoe and he's like, but he wrote his name on our souls. Oh.
That's a good, yeah.
Anyway.
Because
it's a pun.
there's no better way of selling a religion than a pun.
Yes, I know. But
Yeah.
I think you're right when you say it has to do with preachiness, because I think growing up in these churches and everything they try to do must have these components, or it's not, they don't consider it an adequate Christian work, in quotes. Like, it must have a message that communicates the terms of salvation so that someone through this one work could possibly become a Christian. Like, they have all they need in this single book, film, whatever, to maybe convert.
And that's never gonna work, because it is. I mean,
that ruins everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly boil the Christian faith down to a couple of sentences, but I mean, it is remarkably complex, and you want people to. I mean, you're basically asking people to reconsider how they're living their lives, right? And if they want to devote their lives to these values, I mean, you'd better be sure that your work lives up to the inherent complexity of that. But of course it won't.
But I mean, it's a bit of a hangover from previous sort of eras where the idea of awe being a way of getting people to sort of seek enlightenment or atonement is, I mean, that's there's a reason why most of the churches in Northern Europe or in any part of Europe are so spectacular compared to the rest of the buildings around them. It's because a lot of money was sort of pumped into these things to give that kind of sense of awe. And if you're going to do a multi-million dollar movie, for example, I mean, there's loads of faith movies.
Looking at you, Mel Gibson.
Maybe. Well,
Not that one.
Not just Mel Gibson. There's a massive
His are like
industry.
the best ones, I think. Like, I mean, I would say, I don't know. Have you seen any of these movies?
I've never seen.
No.
I've never seen The
Oh,
Passion
man.
of the Christ.
Oh, The Passion of the
You
Christ is
should have a
actually quite
party.
good.
And watch God's Not Dead. Have you heard of this movie?
I don't think so. No.
No.
Oh,
Is-
man.
is
It's
this-
like the chain email that went around where there's a professor and he's an atheist and he's challenging some student, and one student stands up and he's like, I believe in God. And the bad professor, have you heard of this chain email? I don't know.
Oh no,
It might
it's like the fucking Jack Chick tracks, isn't it?
Yes.
Like this one professor is just screaming his head off, "You be quiet with that religious filth in my class," and the poor kid's just sitting there going, I just wanted to spread the good word.
It's the film version of that. Of a chick. And like the professor ends up getting like cancer or something and dying, and then it's just the worst. The worst. But the thing that kills me is all of the churches like in the United States just embrace it because, oh, it's a Christian movie. We got to support this. And it's like, yeah, some of them are more innocuous and more, I think, don't have more positive messages and stuff, even though they shove like the whole salvation message somewhere in it.
Well,
At least they're just a little nicer. But this is just kind of a bitter. All of the non-Christian characters like either get hit by a car or like just end up unless they convert, they end up having a horrible time. And I don't know. I don't think it's a very good. I think that comes back to this what we were talking about, because like I think the message is that they want to imbue their work with is put way, way, way ahead of any consideration of quality or anything. And even the idea that you have to imbue your work with some complete message like this already is a step towards like ruining the art.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Because I listen to a lot of rock music, surprise, surprise, and I actually I did not expect that one. I gotta say, where did that come from?
That's God Gave Rock and Roll to You by Kiss.
I know what fucking song it is. I was just
well, don't fucking say that you don't then.
That is some good foresight.
Yeah, I did not know. I didn't plan on saying this.
Next question about religion. Asking the Christian man, Jay, did God in fact give rock and roll to us?
In a roundabout way, yeah, I think so.
Good answer. Good answer. Now, I've listened to some, Christian heavy metal, and one of my favorite industrial metal records is a Christian guy called John Crosby, who did a record that no one has ever listened to. And another band that I was really interested in was one called Circle of Dust, which reportedly left their Christian label because they didn't sing about, God and salvation and Jesus enough. And, the dude who was in that band eventually wound up becoming Self-Dweller, who still has a lot of religious themes in his music, but he's got this big middle finger reserved for the Christian music industry, because to them, it's all about quote-unquote sell the product. And I don't mean his CDs and his records. I mean sell the Christian faith, as in you're now a living advertisement for this faith. And he was just, fuck this noise. I am off to make my own shit. So I kind of I see the same correlation in, the Christian games that we were talking about, how bitterly awful they are because the people who designed them, probably in good faith, haha, pun again, tried to imbue them with a certain... How many of these samples did you put?
The doctor is on fire.
Son of
you should have played the Limp Bizkit one anyway.
Well, I mean, we're about to have a copyright infringement. If you are even able to listen to this episode, you're fucking lucky.
Yeah, YouTube is not going to like this.
Good thing we don't monetize.
Sorry, go ahead. Please continue.
No, I think that was about it. The Christian games kind of have the sell the faith thing to it, and like you say, they have to pack all of salvation and redemption and conversion and all of this shit into one game, and you're just sitting there with your controller going, I just wanted to shoot things.
I want to play a video game. That's the problem with all this stuff. Like, and even if this was some kind of effective way of spreading this ideology or religion or something, like, what? I mean, I have to think, if I was listening to something, I don't know, by a Buddhist or something, and it was it was done in the same way that like a Christian film or big budget album or something does it, it would make me like, it would just make me feel weird. Like I don't like, even if like I think that maybe the ideology at the core or something is even agreeable, it would still make me feel weird, because the whole reason that this person created this work was to try to maybe a little convince me that this is what I should do or something. Like, it wasn't about them making something that's an extension of themselves, or expressing something important to them. Maybe somewhat that's in there, but the central purpose is to in some way change me through what they're making, and that just feels crappy and wrong and stuff. So
I think that's one of the the issues is that, I mean, and from what I can tell, more modern sort of Christian films are getting better at adding nuance and putting the story first. Is that, I mean, there's plenty of people that have written books and films and computer games that have messages and political or religious or cultural messages within them. Plenty of people have done that. But the ones that are successful are the ones that can acknowledge nuance and weaknesses in their own side, and so it becomes more of a sort of a thing for the listener or the player or the viewer to explore, not just just preaching. And they do tend to be the ones that you can watch them and not realize until 5 years later, oh shit, that was made by that guy, and that guy is that guy. And, you know, that those tend to be the ones that work a little bit better. I mean, I know that the latest film that, if any of you follow professional wrestling, which I'm not sure if you do, Shawn Michaels is in a new Christian film. For those of you who know who Shawn Michaels is, Shawn Michaels has just starred in a Christian movie. And the one thing that he said about that film that made him want to sign up and do it was that they acknowledged that the kind of people that tend to go to church groups are a little bit off, and that teenagers most of the time don't want to join the church club, and actually playing with the fact that, yeah, some aspects of religion are a bit hokey, but there's a deeper message to it. And I think those tend to be the games that, and the art forms that tend to work much better than the slap you around the face with the message type films.
Yeah, I think the what Jay was saying before about that the core message is, you know, being humble, being nice to people, and not be a total jerk, and not be self-serving. These are the core tenets of, let's face it, most religions I can think of, not just Christianity. And if I were to put a positive spin on religious beliefs in general, it would be that they are a way to, you know, facilitate that sort of behavior, as opposed to the other type of behavior that, you know, is way too prevalent these days and probably has been for all days. So whatever way you arrive at being humble and, you know, a loving person and good towards others and, you know, bake fresh cookies and whatever, as long as you get there, you know, it doesn't really matter which religious way you took, or if you're a Muslim or you're a Jew or you're a Christian or you're Satanist or whatever. I mean, as long as you're a nice person, then, you know, good on you. And, you know, for me, if you're going to make a story that has some, you know, gateway to this way of behaving nicely, then I don't give a shit if it's made by a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian or an atheist or a Buddhist or those people who prance around the woods in animal costumes. You know, fuck it, have fun.
Vikings.
But there is the sense, and Jay was talking about this, there's the sense that for many, for some reason, especially Christian, at least in Western culture, it is to, well, this is what you should follow. You know, you can be a nice person, but you'll never be a really nice person until you sign on our dotted line.
With that in mind, I want to ask you, Jay, because as I mentioned...
Oh, Jay's still here. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, as I mentioned, as I mentioned earlier, Jay, the line that you made about Dropsy being a Christ-like figure at Adventure X got a big laugh out of the audience,
Robocop.
which kind of indicates to me that people don't think of the game that way. Do you think that it has, you know, that the appreciation for the spiritual elements of the game have come across in the reception, or are you a bit underwhelmed by how people think of it, or do you even give a shit?
I don't care much. Like, I think it communicates it well, personally, and I think that I think it'll do its work. Not to be like weird, spiritual, whatever, but I think that there are truths in it.
Has anyone
and
reached
those things?
Oh, sorry. Do continue.
I think those things will resonate with a person's spirit, maybe, you know, like these truths, maybe. And I think especially like maybe people our age, not as much, but I think back on when I was a teenager, or and a lot of media had a big impact on me. Even stuff that the designers didn't even intend to be meaningful. Just I would latch onto them, and like I don't know, I'm sure you know fans of certain, like I had a friend who was a huge like Zelda Ocarina of Time fan, and this was just like part of their identity, and like those characters don't really have any personality. You know, they're Zelda characters. There's not much. You could probably write the story on a page, but it was somehow meaningful to them. And so I feel like if someone plays my game and they're in this formative age, and if you look on Twitter, a lot of people at these ages are the jerks on Twitter frequently. I can't count the amount of times I've seen someone be just a absolute jerk to someone else, and then I click on their profile and they're like, "I'm 16,"
and yet
or whatever.
and yet you're still following me.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised that you were 16, but anyway, and so maybe if Dropsy can at least do that, you know, maybe someone will play it and you know, get something out of it, you know, in those years, or maybe they'll relate to Dropsy himself. But I mean, beyond that, like, religion is interesting, and Christianity, and all these religions are interesting because there are other, like you said, like to Christians or to Muslims, it isn't all about being a good person or whatever. There are other requirements or whatever. And I believe that a relationship with God is a thing, and I think it's a healthy, good thing to have, and I think it's necessary. However, I don't think the way that you introduce such concepts are just by saying that, or just, you know, it's just completely unrelatable to people. You don't just go to someone and just, whatever you believe, start telling them everything, you know, all of the fine details or whatever. So there is some like spiritual element to this for me. And it's not like some intentional way to convert people, but it's more, I don't think I could spend so long on a project without there being this meaning in there.
It
like,
sounds
I would feel like
it's a way for you to make your game design give meaning to you, and also what you're trying to do, at least as far as I can tell, is to try to tell people through storytelling why these values make you a happy person.
Well, yeah. Dropsy is not a conversion tool, and that's why I really love the way that you put your faith into the game, is that it's not meant to go, by the way, your life would be so much better if... No, it's just a way to tell, you know, when Dropsy came out, there was a lot of, oh my god, an adventure game that's actually, or just a game that's actually about being nice to people. It was like, my fucking god, this is like, we've never seen anything like this before.
There's never any big M. Night Shish Kebab twist where Dropsy suddenly turns out to be an evil serial killer.
You do steal a fishing pole. Yeah, but well, you know, hey, there, you know, you can't be perfect.
Nah, you know, stealing a fishing pole is not that big a problem. But have you ever
let he who is without sin burn down the first circus
and steal the fishing pole? Have you ever had anyone reach out to you and comment on that aspect of Dropsy, you know, either positively or negatively, or has it kind of gone under the radar?
We have one or two Steam reviews, negative ones where people thought it was too obvious.
Really?
Yeah, and we have another. Actually, one of them thought the religious thing was distracting because of the very end of the game. Things happen, but one of the yeah, things.
Things.
Things happen. But one of the other guy thought it was a anti-capitalism game, and he I guess because there's an evil CEO guy. Oh, spoilers. But you know, I that wasn't on purpose either. But I think maybe it is somehow some kind of subtle commentary, just because maybe that's what the end result of the teachings of Christ are. I don't know.
Yeah,
There was the whole bit about
I-
tossing moneylenders out of the temple.
Yeah,
wasn't
and
there?
I mean, some people have, clumsily, in my opinion, some people have gone, Christ was a socialist in memes or whatever. And I mean, it seems that we're stuck with capitalism, 21st century. It's the system that has worked the best to the most people so far. So, I guess that's
We
how it
already
is.
did the political episode.
Yeah, but
We don't have to get-
I didn't necessarily want to make it political, but I think the idea of an evil CEO getting what's coming to him is kind of also a commentary on selfish behavior, and the
It's more-
consequences.
the dude is kind of the soulless guy. I mean, he's focused on material wealth, and he's not focused on
Well, he's
being
selfish,
a nice
which is what
person.
I just said.
So it's selfish and soulless. Whereas Dropsy has a kind soul.
Selfish
which
and
is,
soulless sound like the nihilistic Laurel and Hardy.
Isn't that basically the plot to A Christmas Carol? The soulless CEO that gets that sees the light
I
of
guess
God,
it could be.
or sees
that's like
salvation.
we haven't really had any good games up where, apart from Dropsy, where the Christian message is shown in a positive light. But I mean, as far as stories go, I think Christmas Carol is very uplifting.
Yeah.
And it's
I
got
don't know.
Muppets.
Our villain doesn't. We just leave it kind of a question what happens to him, I think. But he's not in a very good position at the end of the game. But he's how many of you guys have seen the end of this?
I haven't
game?
yet. I'm
I
sorry.
watched
I'm
it.
playing it. I haven't yet played all the way
You
through
watched
it.
it and you're okay. I won't.
I watched
spoil
the Let's Play. Yeah, but it gets a bit. I mean, it gets a bit weird at the end. Let's
Yeah.
just put it that way.
So does the
Things.
Bible. Have you read Revelations?
Oh yeah.
So the part where the big cross comes out of the ground and Dropsy is on it and stuff, you guys haven't seen that part yet? And the Romans and all that? Oh, yeah.
I think I might have
My
blinked and
favorite.
missed
You
it.
licensed music from Jesus Christ Superstar, didn't you?
Yeah. No. Anyway. That
No.
would have been what I would have done like 8 years ago if I made this game.
Yeah.
It would have been horrible.
So I guess if I can ask one of the big burning questions, no pun intended, burning bush questions.
Oh, come
Is-
on.
Yeah, that was a belabored one. I'm sorry.
Is that one from Book of Leviathan?
Oh, man.
I think what I wanted to kind of probe at was the you said that having a relationship with God is important and in fact a necessity for, I'm assuming, yourself and not for everyone in the world, because you are a rational human being and you don't want to force your beliefs. I mean, the Crusades are over. You don't want to force your beliefs on people who are not receptive to it. I'm guessing you seem
Well,
like
I don't want to force. I think it's necessary for humanity. Yeah, but at the same time, I don't think that the methods that like anyone uses, and I don't think it's my goal even to convince anyone. I think I just need to be an example,
Okay.
of what I believe, and
Yes.
then I think if Christians would do that, that's what we're supposed to do.
Right.
There
Just
you go.
exemplify Christ. And
That's-
that's kind of why this game, like, the church lady in the game, she's
Yes.
Yeah.
very loud with telling everyone what they should and shouldn't do. And then I kind of want to Dropsy to kind of juxtapose this where he's not, he's not telling anyone anything, but I think that when you exemplify it, that these things and, these spiritual principles that you're exemplifying have some like eternal resonance that other people's spirits will recognize. And so in some way, some small, way, I think that everything that you do has some spiritual significance. So I think it's less about like some intellectual trying to convince you and you need to call yourself this, or whatever, or you need to be part of my tribe, but more I'm sounding very hippy dippy, but yeah, more a spiritual,
The scarf
spiritual
helps.
thing. Yeah, like a deeper thing, I guess. I don't know, like something that just your spirit recognizes under the surface without your knowledge or without your thinking it.
I'm on board with that.
So yeah, that's what my thinking is, and that's why I think. Oh my God, did you ever play the Left Behind or hear about the Left Behind real-time strategy game? Anyone?
No, I'm afraid
No,
not.
can't say I did.
Well, I mean, we have
man.
a podcast about video games. Our dirty little open secret is that we hardly play any because we're spending time making the
Me
podcast.
neither. I really suck, but I want a Nintendo so bad. Oh my God. Okay, the new Nintendo. I'm so lusting. Anyway, but there's a game. Do you know the Left Behind books and movies and stuff?
When you were talking about Christian movies, I actually flashed to having read a Wikipedia article about a movie tie-in to one of the Left Behind books. It's about the rapture, isn't it? When everyone gets,
it's like the rapture.
Oh,
and
now I know of
everyone
it, yeah.
who's left behind on Earth is just walking around, being assholes to each other and figuring out how can we get to heaven.
Yeah, in the game, you are like, I guess, the army of God or something, and you basically just literally kill all of the unbelievers.
Wow.
Basically. And so in Revelation, where they're pulling this from, they try to excuse it by saying that these people are under some influence of demonic whatever. But if you boil it down to what you're actually doing in this game, you're just killing everyone that's not a Christian. And I first heard about it in a PC Gamer article back when I was a teenager, and I was really excited because when I read the headline, it was like a Christian game, and they said something crappy about it, but I was like, oh my God, a Christian real-time strategy game. Whoa! Like, no one makes modern Christian games, and I was all excited because this is my thing,
Christendom and conquer.
Yeah, it was so bad though. And when I read the review, I'm like, oh. And even back then, I was, I don't know, 14 or 15 or something. I was like, oh, okay. Nah, I don't think
really
so.
what we're...
Yeah. So that is the worst Christian game, I think.
Yeah, has anyone played or seen That Dragon Cancer?
Yeah, I played it. I'm actually acquainted with the couple who made it. So.
Yeah. Did you say horrible people?
No, I said poor people.
couple.
Poor people. It's
couple.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say Jesus.
I know the horrible people of it.
Horrible.
I know the horrible shit. I watched a Let's Play of it. For those of you who don't know, it's a very tragic story about a couple who lost their child to cancer and their battle with coming to terms with it. And it has some very Christian overtones. And I have to watch what I say because this will get back to them if I say something bad about it. But one of the things that kind of turned me off about it was the heavy emphasis on the religious aspect of it. Not that it didn't have its place in there, but at the end, it seemed like everything was going to be all right moving forward because now we've just suddenly decided that we love God a lot. And that was kind of the sense I got at the end. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like it lived up to this Hollywood stereotype of religious convictions, where if you just believe hard enough, pixies can fly and shit.
Jesus, take the wheel, take it from my head.
Yep, that's it. So what's your take on that, Jay? If is it just Yeah, what is your take on that?
I think as a person who grew up in a evangelical church in the United States, like I'm familiar with lots of I don't know, all the tropes and all the everything that you would expect from, and I think these people were from a similar background. So a lot of the stuff I like, I don't know. It's just kind of normal to me, because that's where I grew up. You know, like I heard a lot of these things that are said in this game, like a lot. So it almost, it didn't lose its meaning as much as it's just so normal to hear this, you know, a lot of these things.
I guess from a European perspective, it's kind of alien. But I mean, there is also the angle to it that none of us know what it's like to lose a child to cancer, right? So if you want
definitely
if you,
not,
you know, I
not,
mean,
not knocking that part.
I mean, if you want to turn to God because you need comfort after something completely horrible like that, it makes sense to me. But I mean, the way that it would be put across in this game probably would be completely impossible for me to relate to.
That's
I think
what I was getting at. Yes,
the issue with this is like it's kind of alien. I don't know. To a lot of people, when I played it, I don't know. I also felt that way somewhat. I understood their what they were trying to get at, but I think it's just not having a kid and not experiencing loss yet.
Right.
Like no one in my family has passed away yet. So and it just, a lot of that was just foreign to me. So it was such a personal thing that I find it really hard to even critique, because a lot of like the letters in it and the dialogue and stuff was just real recordings or real letters they wrote to each other, I think this is just how they, you know, dealt with it.
Moved on.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody deals with grief differently, and so however they personally deal with it is always going to seem odd to some people.
Yeah, and it's a very personal space to intrude in, and that probably also colors your experience with it. You know, I mean that will either leave you biased in some way or another, as Gareth says. It's a very personal space to be in.
Okay, but let me dial that one back and sort of explain where I'm coming from, because I used to be the asshole who would, you know, be fiercely anti-Christian.
He says used to, people.
Yes,
he says used to.
I'm still an asshole, but I used to be
just in other ways now.
Yeah. And I was the dickhead who would, you know, get into arguments about how can you possibly believe in God and all that junk. I've softened on that approach, because I can see now that having a religious faith does not necessarily make you an argumentative dick, like I ironically was at the time. But one thing I still can't square personally for me is the belief in I have to be a good person because otherwise something terrible will happen to me, the whole governing through fear kind of thing. And I've never been able to square that. And it goes back to that dragon cancer, not in the sense that they feel like they have to place their faith in God because otherwise something more terrible shit is going to happen to them. I said at the start here that my favorite fable in the Bible was the Book of Job, and I see now why it is such a popular bit of the Bible, because it does literally sound like, all right, you can be the best person in the world, God will still fuck with you but if you keep on saying that you love him, keep on, you know, doing the right thing, eventually he might let you go to heaven. So this whole, you know, we love God because we're deathly fucking afraid of him has never sat right with me.
Yeah, I think that they just, well, this can go very long and deep and stuff, but I think that, it was just, in terms of how they did that, how they portrayed this in the game, it was just, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. We should
divorce this from the game, actually. And I'm sorry for bringing this up we've got like maybe 7 minutes left of the show.
It's fine.
But we should probably
Yeah,
divorce it,
But
'cause
it depends on how you see salvation. Whether you see salvation as saving yourself or whether you see it as saving your soul, and those two things they're not quite the same thing depending on the branch of whichever Abrahamic religion you're from. And so it's
Right. So
it's
I think
easy to kind of paint. Yeah, sorry, you go, Jay.
No, go ahead. You finish your thought. Sorry.
No, so it's easy to see it, I think, as God-fearing, as being literal from a sort of an outsider's perspective, but I'm not sure it necessarily comes across in the same way from the internal logic of at least the branch of Protestantism that I'm most familiar with, being a C of E baptized person myself.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think that's right. I think they. I don't think they're like deathly afraid of him as much as this gets into like. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without opening up the problem of pain and like suffering and all of this, because that's just a big discussion. But yeah, I think they see the bad in the world, the evil in the world, from a source outside of God. Like, and I think they see though Job. God. There's too much to like talk about.
Yeah, I think I may have broken our guest. I'm very, very sorry about that. And I do really want to say, I was not kidding. We should divorce that from the game That Dragon Cancer, because the last thing I want to do is shit on people who lost a child to cancer. That is not my intention.
Yeah. So all of these things are bouncing around in my head, like theological things with C.S. Lewis and all of these like random things now. So I really don't know where to start because it's such a massive
I should have brought this up
thing?
sooner, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps.
Well, I mean, if you see me
them
leaving the Skype call, then it's gone on too long, you know.
Okay. I think it's not fear to them as much as it's just like trusting in something outside of themselves, which to them is a transcendent father, transcendent being, you know, who ultimately, when time is over, when this existence is over, things will work for the good, for the ultimate good.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that they are trusting in that. And so the suffering here, I think they're trying to rest in the knowledge that this is temporary and there is a transcendent justice and a transcendent, you know, end point where all things will be made right. And they're trying to like kind of rest and trust in that, but they're struggling with dealing with this immense grief that conflicts with this human.
The getting there process.
Yeah, so I think that was kind of what they were trying to show, like the struggle they were trying to show between this real, you know, or to us real suffering that we're experiencing, and contrast it with this very hard to grasp, hard to understand, transcendent like security or comfort or, you know, peace or whatever. And I feel like that struggle was kind of what they were trying to show, because it's very difficult. Like, you know, Christians, I think especially Christians like them who don't just ignore when there are seemingly, you know, there are conflicts between what we see in this reality and what our faith is, you know. I don't think they ignore those things. I think they kind of wrestle with them, and I think that's part of their a lot of that, like what you were talking about in the game. But that's just how I saw it.
Well, that's a really good way of seeing it. Yeah, I'll take that into account. I think you brought it home right there. I did have it's like a last minute kind of a quick little facetious question I wanted to throw out, but
you can probably do that.
I'm just
Let's do it. Let's lighten it up.
It's not very light. I was just going to say, okay, because we were talking about fear versus love of God, and I was just going to facetiously ask, okay, so do you fear God or love God more?
I think
That's
love.
Both.
But there you go.
All right. I want to thank you immensely for taking the time to talk about this. I know it must have been a bit of a what the fuck am I doing? What do these guys want to talk to me about?
I like it. I mean, I don't talk about this stuff much, and I mean, I was on Christian podcasts, and I don't think we talked about as much theology. So that's yeah. I wish we talked about more games, probably, because I don't know how applicable to a lot of people's designing this is going to be. But hey, maybe
I don't know.
We'll get you on next season, and we'll talk about that then.
No, I think I think your thoughts have been very interesting in letting people know how you approach your faith in the games medium and what it does to you as a designer. And who knows, maybe someone listening to this will open up more about letting their convictions be part of that process, knowing that, well, here's a guy who it has done wonders for, apparently.
Yeah, I think that would be good if more people would put themselves in there, what they're making.
Yeah.
I think what I'm taking away from this is that if you're going to do a game or a story or whatever, and you want to, show that show your faith and such, don't be preachy about it. Don't ram it down people's throat, because a game is not a conversion tool. It's a way of expressing how you feel, and any good author puts a certain amount of themselves into their art, and Jay has clearly done that with Dropsy.
Yeah.
I think the last thing we should probably do is, of course, let Jay tell everyone where they can find his stuff and his lovely self, and then I'm going to wrap shit up.
Well, thank you. You can find me on Twitter at JayTholen. And you can also go to jaytholen.net, but don't, because I haven't updated that website since 2013, and it's still advertising my Dropsy Kickstarter, I think. And
So
I should
people,
update
people
that.
just keep throwing money at you. What a shame.
They're stupid. Anyway, no, yeah. I won't get into that. I always do feel like I'm ripping people off at the beginning before the game is like made. It's just a thing in my brain though, because I know I'm going to make the game. Anyway, sorry. And then, but it really is just a bunch of people having faith that I'm going to finish this thing I'm telling them about. Oh, nice. Any other words I should say?
Buy Dropsy. It's a good game.
Yeah, purchase Dropsy, please.
Yeah, it's on Steam, it's on GOG.
Itch, all those, yeah.
There was an expansion coming out, wasn't there? Last time we talked on the Space Quest Historian podcast, you said there was an expansion on its way, and that was all.
The team is all working on different projects that are things that will pay us, eventually. Whereas Dropsy, this update's not really going to make us any money, so it's going really slowly. So I can't say when it's going to be out, but it will be done.
It will come, and there will be more hugging.
And there will be salvation.
Wet hugging.
Yes.
Damn wet hugging.
More very subtle. I don't think there's any other theological stuff in here, but there's a beach and there's karaoke.
There's a beach.
Well, that's pretty much heaven,
You can sing karaoke on the beach, basically.
Nice.
I'm really excited about the karaoke because I'm going to take like MIDI files of like Creed or I don't know, whatever you would sing at karaoke, and then slightly change the...
Smoke on the water.
Change the melodies or something, and then re-render it to sound like a really bad karaoke track, and Dropsy will sing to it.
You had to go with Creed, which is possibly the worst Christian band in the world. That's sad now.
That's how they advertise themselves, kind of like Carlsberg,
worst.
Probably the best lager in the world, probably the worst Christian band in the world.
But it's karaoke, so
so it has to be.
And also probably that Titanic song. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
But anyway, sorry to wrap this up so fast. I know this is going to get interesting in the green room afterwards. No, it's not. We're not. Anyway, yes, ending spiel. You can also follow this podcast on Twitter at BS Designers. There's a Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Backseat Designers. We are on YouTube for some reason at youtube.com/Backseat Designers. And we have a Patreon, which is to pay for Frederick's communion. It's over on patreon.com/Backseat Designers.
Hallelujah.
He has to get a pretty floral dress and everything, and also, spankings. And most importantly of all, you can go subscribe to the show at backseatdesigners.com. I furnished the website with a fancy new theme that looks less shitty on mobile, so hope you enjoy that.
Ooh.
And I think that's about it. Again, thank you so much to Jay Tholen, however that last... I
don't even know.
No,
There's debate. Google says Tholen, I think,
So,
which I don't like.
Crown of Tholen.
Yes.
Oh, God. The Tholenator.
There's an island in the Netherlands called Tholen, so maybe I'll go claim it.
Yeah, just go play.
You absolutely should.
Yes. And go. If you ever see Jay on the street, go give him a warm, big, damp hug, because he does give the best hugs in the world. I've been to Adventure X. I've been in his embrace. It is fantastic. So, say goodbye, Fred.
Goodbye.
And goodbye, Mr. Bombshell Millwood.
Sacrilegious.
You're saving that one for the end, weren't you? Yes. Bye for me. We will see you next week.
Bye.
No more for today.